So what's underneath this ground? What's underneath the whole city? Mines.
Yes.
Lots of dangerous mines. If a large earthquake hit Tombstone, I would be afraid. When you buy a home here, you actually have to sign a paper which shows that you carry mine shaft insurance, and many, many disclaimers. I will not build a swimming pool in my backyard. I will not dig deep holes in my yard, because you never know where you're going to hit a mine shaft.
Yes, and also, it still exists to this day. We are above a part of what's called the Mountain-Made Mining District. There are a number of these mining districts, and they were drawn out. It didn't matter what got built on top. There was issues of mineral rights. So mineral rights apparently came separate. About 20 years ago, some flim-flam artists tried to basically say, I have the mining rights, and I'm going to start mining unless you pay me all this money to not mine. Well, he was exposed as a fraud, prosecuted, and summarily dealt with by the authorities, but it had everybody frightened for a moment.
So why is the Mountain-Made Mine so special? Because the Earps owned it. Most specifically, Virgil Earp owned it. So did he own this property? No, he owned what was underneath.
And that's really all they cared about at this point. What was on the ground really was of secondary importance. So even to this day, there are mine shafts. A lot of them have been blocked off, but you got to be careful, especially if you were to go hiking around here. If you see a mine shaft,
don't go in there.
Don't mess with it. Absolutely, it's not a good thing. But that aside, it's just one of the reflects on the history of this town, which was built on mining, large-scale industrial mining. And it wasn't always for necessarily silver. There were other elements that were just as valuable. Copper eventually also came into its own later, and especially with the First World War. Copper goes into shells, you need a lot of those, etc., etc. And that's why down the road, Bisbee was such a center of the copper industry.
Now, Tombstone is a Victorian town, and Bisbee is a little later. It's an Edwardian town, and it never burned down. So most of those buildings are original. Tombstone burned twice.
I believe twice, maybe three times.
But not the entire town. Unfortunately, it was a historic district. So most of the buildings are adobe, but they just rebuilt them.
And you'll also find that often when they did rebuild, a lot of the structures were just simply rebuilt over the foundations. If you were to look, there's a series of fire maps. They're called the Sanborns Maps. And they were basically maps for fire insurers. And every town in the West, they had one for these. Very extensive. It's all like pre-computer era, pre-CAD, all that good stuff. And they would have it down to the individual buildings, what they were made of, and they've used that to document the evolution of the town. And the one finding that some folks did in studying this came to the conclusion that a lot of the buildings were just simply built, and made sense, over the foundation. Clean it out, fix it up, boom, put the building up again. But when you look at the, say, the movie Tombstone, the buildings, portrayed there, a lot of them, they were gone, a lot of those, 8 months after the fact. The gunfight happened in October.
That was the first fire.
And the first fire happened in next year, maybe March, April. I'd have to look it up. And the dates escape me right now. But you get the idea. So anyway, this is just a little bit of what we've got here. And we'll be showing you some more. And we'll be testing our equipment out further. So thank you very much. And we bid you adieu.